There we go. So, good morning, Jimmy. How are you?
Having a great day. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for joining us. So, why don't you do a little introduction first before we, dive into anything?
Sure. I can keep it short, or I can kind of speak at length, whatever you think we have time for. It's been quite a long road, so I'm happy to focus on what I'm doing this year and now, or maybe with some broad brushstrokes as well as how I got here. Whatever you think is the best use of time.
I think maybe just a brief introduction, and then we can,
Sure.
go more in depth with the questions later.
Sure, perfect. So my name's Jimmy Baratta. I am the Chief Gaming Officer for Holodeck Media. That's kind of a fancy title. I'm really an operations guy. So I have a media company with a podcast and some news outlets and other related programming that we're growing right now, all in the gaming and esports space and metaverse themes, crypto themes, anime, honestly, anything that touches on video gaming, we like to create content around. So that's my day to day and my primary focus. I'm also an investor and a strategist for XSET. A lot of you guys might be familiar with XSET. We started about 2 years ago as a tier one esports competitive org and lifestyle brand, and we have some amazing names on our roster, from Zeke Elliott of the Cowboys to platinum selling Sway Lee and Ozuna, and really great Valorant team, Rocket League, etc. So I'm really happy to be involved over there with those guys. And I also teach esports at UC Irvine. So I would say those are the three bigger areas of where my time is being spent today.
That's a vast portfolio, of a project that you've taken on. Do you want to share a little bit more about what you've done recently, or something that has really, taken up more time, and are exciting to let our students know what they are?
Yeah, actually, if I could even start with just a little bit of the even broader background, I spent so much time when I got into esports and gaming doing talent management for people like the Travis Scott Fortnite event, Astronomical, which I consulted on, and some other live streams with YB and Namir and some biz dev projects with 21 Savage. I spent a lot of time working with non-endemic brands and people that were in traditional forms of entertainment and trying to explore how to leverage those in the gaming space and take advantage of opportunities. So with that as kind of the foundation of a lot of my work for the past 3 years, to your question, what am I doing now in this year? It's kind of different, because now I'm in a space where everyone we meet with or talk to is someone that's been in gaming for a long time. Last week I interviewed Facebook Gaming's head of strategy and operations just to talk about Facebook Gaming's approach towards the streaming wars. This person, John Pan, was also the former head of studio for Amazon Games. He also worked at Riot in 2014 when League was just getting to be a big title. So as you can imagine, speaking with someone like John from Facebook, who knows more than I do about gaming, world of difference than 3 years ago when I'm working with these rappers and athletes and traditional entertainment properties that didn't know a lot about gaming. They just knew it was an area they needed to be in. They liked playing games, but didn't really get the streaming component of it or some of the more technical aspects. So now a lot of my time, like I said, is spent networking and doing biz dev with companies that are endemic to this space. Companies that are, I do quite a bit with Gen G, with XED, of course, my org. We've had Immortals on the show. Really awesome lineup, honestly. This year, we're going to have Team Liquid as well as their parent company, Axiomatic, on our programming. So again, it's a different conversation when you already know, what esports and what gaming is, and even what competing philosophies or theories, I suppose, as to how to achieve success, how to monetize a brand. So with that in mind, what we're doing this year is really, I think, getting into the nuts and bolts of things and analyzing various businesses of different entry points and different perspectives and kind of comparing them like case studies, because there's no, except for the University of New Haven, there's no master's program in esports. They have the first and only, to my knowledge, but it's still a very it's very early days for us here. So when we're able to interview those companies, interview the CEOs, the investors, the developers, the business development personnel, and directors of various verticals and branches, it makes for really engaging content, I think, and also really interesting, just I don't know, just something educational and fun that's not just like watching Twitch and seeing someone play, an FPS or Fortnite or something like that.
Okay, thank you for that. I think you mentioned, talking to Facebook. They're obviously expanding hugely in the world of gaming, and now with all the buzzwords around metaverse,
Yeah.
um, I've heard so much, and then bits and pieces about different type of gaming companies trying to get into metaverse, different entertainers. Snoop Dogg was have creating his own NFTs. So all of these, how do you see, first of all, what is metagaming, and how do you see the future unfold, for the next short period of time?
Yeah. It's such a loaded question in a really fun way, right? Because I think
Mhm.
everyone's approaching it differently. A lot of people are hesitant or skeptical, and then a lot of other companies you see are just diving heads first, right? Um, in short, and I think everyone that's listening probably already has an underlying interest in a fundamental understanding of crypto technology, of blockchain-based infrastructure and applications, and how games are taking advantage of that. So, Ubisoft, for example, announced their emergence into and their entrance into developing blockchain-based games. And I don't want to pollute that, I think, with NFTs, which do intersect, but can also be, I think, uniquely different. Um, God, I'm trying to give you something of substance without just saying a lot of words that don't make any sense or that aren't interconnecting. And that's because, again, any one of these topics is its own feature and its own subject.
Right.
Um, I think the best way to talk about it honestly is to cut to an example. Louis Vuitton and Burberry came out with some mobile games last year, 2021. And in those games, you could collect NFTs, right? Everyone knows non-fungible tokens, unique digital assets. What's really cool about how Louis Vuitton implemented it in their mobile game is the NFTs that you collect in that game that you can own and acquire kind of mirrored a lot of their product catalog, their high-end luxury goods
Right.
that you could buy in store. And me, as
Mhm.
someone that kind of likes luxury menswear, I wanted my video game avatar to have the same Louis Vuitton backpack that I have. And again, I'm not trying to say that to be snobby. I'm trying to say it to like show an application of one brand with physical goods that are rare, that are expensive, that are coveted, and how they were able to apply that in a video game sense. And now you want it there too. Because the real question I think that a lot of people have and a lot of skeptics have is where's the value in these digital assets? These things don't really
Mhm.
have any true scarcity and they're not really worth anything. Um, but just like regular art, it's also a lot of it's subjective. And the wonderful thing I think about blockchain is a lot of it does have a quantifiable value that you can attribute to some type of work effort or product, not just a community and speculation. So having those, I suppose, as the anecdotes and as the premise or the fundamentals, meta gaming or the gaming's approach to the metaverse is very much going to be the nexus, I think, of how we interconnect with one another in a digital social sense. Our generation and the older generations have already been or rather have been introduced into that field. We've been engaging socially on, from MySpace all the way now to TikTok and everything in between.
Mhm.
We've been consuming content more and more, digitally on, OTT and streaming platforms and less so on linear or traditional broadcast. And when you think that gaming facilitates all of those things, uh, it really becomes the nexus of pop culture, of social engagement and interaction, and eventually of work and business as well. So everyone loves pointing to the Oasis, which was the metaverse concept from Ready Player One. Fantastic novel. If you haven't read it,
Mhm.
half decent movie, but the book's so much better. But it's a great example, because in there you can go to school in the metaverse, and we
Right.
we do have VR machines where you can walk through the tombs and have other really immersive experiences. So it's really just, I think, the culmination and the um, it's taking what a lot of experiences currently offer and putting them in one place And then I think taking it to that next level where it's even more immersive, it's even, it's not just a limited chat feature or a limited video that you can watch. It's that immersive social collective experience.
I love that. Thank you for the example too. I mean, the there first of all, half decent was generous. It's a generous commentary
I'm
on the
not trying
movie.
to throw shade. Yeah.
It's a safe space. The where the I love that you didn't give an answer that is set in stone. Okay, this is what's going to happen, right? Here's how I predict it, because as we've all experienced, things migrate from platform to platform, from medium to medium, so
Mhm.
rapidly, and will continue to do so in the following foreseeable future. And obviously it's great because now people would just have more opportunities. They can switch gears when it's necessary, or when they feel like it. But I have personally experienced this, it's very daunting to change from your comfort zone onto the next thing, because you feel like that's pulling you. But you have done that with your own career. And I think a lot of students are also struggling with, making decisions, or they feel like they have to pick one because, maybe a lot is at stake. So with your experiences, what do you think was, the most difficult part about making that jump? And, how you navigated that? Maybe just talk a little more about that to shed some light.
Yeah. Um, it's important, right? Because a lot of people have, we all have a lot of interests, right? No one person
Mm.
is all about one thing. We have different things that we like, whether it's food or cinema, different hobbies that we spend time in. And for me, it was an interesting realization where I used to game with my fire team back when we played Destiny, and now we just call it a squad or whatever, depending on the game. But I used to game regularly with my friends, and what I noticed was on Sundays I stopped watching the NFL because I was gaming. And when I kind of realized, hey, I'm actually spending less time listening to new music or watching traditional sports, that all of that free time was going to gaming. It was one of those, like I said, a realization where that was clearly the priority in my life, or at least where I was spending all of my free time. And then it was a slow process of, well, who do I know in this space? What can I do to get my hands dirty, right? To get my feet wet, whatever expression you want to, you use, you're comfortable with. What can I do to get started? And a lot of people, I think, uh, don't know that, or maybe are hesitant, but it starts with your family and your friends and your immediate network. You don't use a lack of knowledge or lack of accessibility as a reason not to do something, because everything I have today, my network, my job, all the projects that I work on, the ones I mentioned and the ones that I haven't, all of that was a result of honestly the last 3 or 4 years of work in this space. Even though before that I was an attorney for 7 years, I hadn't relied on that network or that experience at all. I don't do any of that
Mhm.
work. All I do is biz dev and kind of gaming related projects. And that's because when I first started working in this space, I reached out to my network. I said, hey, who do you know in gaming? Do you know anyone you can introduce me to? And that's always the first thing. Um, the second part, I think, is being persistent. A lot of people will try once or twice and then kind of throw their hands up. And even to this day, I can be rejected 6, 7 times, but I'm going to keep pinging that person. I'm going to keep trying to work that lead until it's absolutely dead, because persistence honestly is the best thing. Because a lot of times it's not a bad fit, it's just a matter of timing. So the only way you really know whether it's a bad product, a bad company, just a misalignment or anything else is if you remain persistent. Because I've had people that have turned me down, and I've had projects that didn't work out only to later come around full circle months later or years later even. My current job, I reached out to my boss 3 years ago, and he said, I don't know what you can do. I don't really have a place for you. My company's still very young and growing. And, last year he called me up and it was the exact opposite. We're growing so big. I've been following what you've been doing. He and I kept in touch every few months where we'd speak. And it was the opposite. He goes, I need you to leave everything that you're doing and come work for me. What's it going to take kind of conversation. And that's a really cool feeling. But again, that is years of planting the seed, nurturing it, and watching it grow until you're able to cultivate a relationship or a project. So, again, I would just say it's about doing as opposed to thinking, and it's about continuing to do because the success isn't one big home run swing, right? It's days, weeks, months of effort every single day, little by little, until it accumulates into something.
Thank you. That's great advice for our students who are trying to make decisions. Maybe they're graduating, or they're picking internships. It's always it for me. I find that it's never really about what you do. It's about who you know, right? So like you've said, you have to reach out, ask people, pitch yourself as a what you cultivate those relationships and kind of build the network. And then over you also you do very different things at different places. I think that's helpful as well. But one thing I think that's very hard to do is it's one thing to reach out to those people. It's another thing to actually maintain that along the way. So how do you actually first of all expand and then continue to do that and keep all these people in your circle?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's kind of the trick, I suppose, isn't it? Um, it was nothing that I planned, and honestly, everything I have right now is really, like I said, the result of very recent work from the last 3, 4 years, where I every single day was just looking for ways to broaden my network or for projects to get involved with. So for me, my very first meeting was with FaZe Clan, and that turned into 8 months of meetings and phone calls and lunches and spin-offs and even the guys that left and went to XSET, then it turned into that, right? And my second meeting, by the way, was with Gen G, and that also turned very similarly into lunches and meetings. And then, oh, this founder has a startup that he invested in that he thinks I'd be a fit for. And oh, this other person now left that org, but is now at a different organization and, is still available to me as a friend. So, I wish I could take credit for how diverse everything's been, but honestly, it's just continuing to get to know people, keeping in touch with them, and realizing that just because that one conversation didn't lead to a job or an internship or a project doesn't mean that it's dead. It just means that's a person that you should talk to in 2 or 3 months, see what they're doing, how they're going, share with them your own success, and maybe something comes then. So it's just a matter of time and like I said, persistence, where you just continue to put yourself out there and you continue to make friends. Because whether you're in gaming and esports or in law or in medicine or literally any field, you get to the point where the people in that circle or in that industry uh, become smaller and smaller groups, right? Because they know who's there for the long term, they know who's a specialist in this area. And when you think of these industries really as close-knit networks, you realize quickly that you're developing your own brand for yourself and your own reputation. So do you want to be the person that reached out once, threw up, your arms because you got fed up with something that wasn't going your way? Or do you want to be that nice person that didn't ask for anything, that just wanted to meet and get to know and to learn? And if an opportunity came up, be ready to take advantage of it. So I've treated every conversation as informational and gathering and exploratory. And then I wait for something in my mind's eye to light up, and I wait to see, can I connect that to something else, and what can I pursue there. I think there's no shortage of projects and there's no shortage of cool or ambitious people. It's just really a lot of friends that either want to work with each other or don't. And I've been in enough, I think, projects to realize that sometimes it's really that simple. It's just, hey, there's 5 other people that do what I do for maybe this role, but you and I have worked together, and that we work well together. So do you want to try it again? Or maybe it's just not a fit this time. But either way, um, it's just about taking those chances. I think continuing to put yourself out there, and yeah, just knowing, like I said, that it's not a one time end all be all.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's very important is that you're not really asking for a gig. You're more, connecting to somebody else as a person. And then,
Right.
showing that you're here for the long run. Um, and I kind of want to ask you about, teaching at UC Irvine.
Sure.
Now that we've got a bit of more time left, what kind of program do they have? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So, USC, I know Southern California. I went to USC. I loved it. Um, I'm from Orange County, so UC Irvine was a little closer here to me, just in my own backyard, right by the Activision Blizzard, or the Blizzard specifically
Mhm.
headquarters in Razor. As I got into gaming and esports after I left law, I first wanted to sign up for a course, like an esports certificate program, just to kind of educate myself on what was going on in this space. And around the time I was doing research, and there's a ton of programs now at a bunch of great schools that you can take, and most of them are online. So really, there's a low barrier to entry. For me, I wanted to do it at UC Irvine because I knew the school. It was close to here. If I ever needed to go in for a panel or some type of roundtable where they invite other industry leaders and you can learn from them. And so I was looking into UC Irvine's program and I signed up for a course. And around that same time, right before the ad drop period closed, I actually got a couple of pretty big contracts for some live events that I wanted to work on. And I thought, well, gee, I'm not really going to have time to take class and work these few projects at the same time. So I unenrolled and I dropped and I kind of dropped out. And about a year or two later, I emailed UC Irvine and I said, hey, I actually had signed up for this course. I still had the program coordinator's information and everything. I said, hey, if you remember me, I had signed up for a class a few years ago. We were talking before, about me having to drop it. Um, I would love, I know you do some roundtables and you do some cool sit down discussions. I would love to be a guest keynote speaker or just a guest lecturer or anything for an hour on a weekend, whenever. And they actually said, we've been following you. We know about the live events with Epic, about the XSET and all these other cool things that I was doing, and they offered me a teaching position. They said, we just want you to share your business anecdotes and your real world experience with our class. So how would you like to teach the course? And that was about a year ago, a little bit over a year ago. And I've since taught every course in that program, but I go back to the overview because that's my favorite. So I'm really, really fortunate to have a family over there and love teaching. But I teach a 3-unit collegiate course as an instructor of esports for them, and students can take it towards a certificate for a esports certificate.
Yeah, that's another thing that I want to remind everybody that the school, being at USC, it's a huge support system for anybody who wants to, reach out to professors or, alumni who have industry experiences, which is, why we're doing this type of conversations. Thank you for sharing your experience.
If I can add to that, before or around the same time I got involved at UC Irvine, I reached out to Professors Huntley and Bellamy at USC,
Mm.
who are friends and people I've known for some time now. And I said, hey, I'm trying to expand my brand. I'm trying to further cement myself in this space and to get good experience. And I went to both of them for advice and for help. And even though I was working and taking this offer from a competing school, because they are such wonderful people and USC is such a wonderful place. And like I said, I'm a USC grad. We had some great talks and they were really helpful in terms of helping me with perspective and managing not just expectation, but rather planning out, I think, how I wanted to approach my career and the things that I wanted to spend my time on, because I didn't know if I needed to, go down this path or try and do a couple of things simultaneously or whatnot. So I did just want to build off of that comment that you just offered, which was particularly Professors Gordon and Professor Bellamy, and how much I appreciated their insight and mentorship. Definitely go to your professors here at SC. They they were great. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a plug for USC Games. We are the better school. So
I'll just say fight on.
we won't share this with anybody, you know, outside of USC. I think this is all we got time for today. Jimmy, thank you so much for being with us and, you know, talking to us. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much for having me. I just want to say if anyone hears this and wants any help or insight or to pick my brain or help networking and getting into this space, you know, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm sure my details will be in the bio or wherever you keep all that stuff.
Yes, we'll share a short bio in our article. All right, fight on.
Fight on.